Now for the track guide. Guys, before starting, if you want to get better with this car, I just created a Porsche Cup course. It will be in the video description, and it's a great way to learn the subtleties of what makes this car tick and how to get more pace. If you're interested into that, just check out GITGUDracing.com. Now, going into the track guide itself, for turn 1, make sure you're aligning yourself as quickly as you can. You're not aligning yourself with this white line because at this point in time, you see this kink around here, it will open up. So you must have your vision in front of the car at the kink. And in terms of reference for braking, you will brake at this number 1 board. So around number 1, you're going to be applying the brakes. Make sure you're looking here at the white line because you want to arrive in a position in which your right tires are even using this little space to the right side of the white line. It's a bit riskier, but make sure your vision stays there. You're just looking for a brief moment at number 1 on the right side, and then once you know where to brake, you should look in front so you can align yourself to use all the track. That's the big challenge in turn 1 around here. It's not an easy setup for the chicane. In terms of the braking and the gears, you have to stay in third gear around here, and you really need to trail brake up until you hit this curb. You have to go very closely to the bumpy blue and orange anti-curbs, and the moment that you hit the curb, that's the moment then you put a throttle. It's not ideal to just cut a lot, but you can cut a little and still gonna be okay. Ideally, you just want to brush towards it but not touch it, because if you get it, it might just make the car jump more in front. And what you need around here is to arrive with the car in the center of the track, not on the far left side, because you're just giving away too much lap time, but you don't want to be here on the right side at this curb. So finding the compromise is a bit tricky. Now around here, just go around the curb. Make sure you arrive all the way on the left side at the red and white curb in third gear. This corner will be flat, almost flat, just a small lift, but make sure you're not doing a huge lift around here. In your mind, think of this corner as flat out, and if you feel like the car is understeering, just lift a tiny bit. Use all the space here on the right side, bring the car back, and now for the next corner, you will be looking here on the right side, because around the 50-meter board, you should brake. So close to the 50, we're braking initially in a straight line, so make sure your steering wheel stays straight at the first touch of the brake. You have just such a small window to keep the steering wheel straight, because then you're gonna just push the car into the chicane. Make sure you're taking advantage of that. So in fourth gear, you're going very closely to the curb, and this time we can cut a lot the curbs because we are still holding the brakes. So the difference was that in turn 1, you are pushing the throttle. That push of the throttle will unbalance the car a little bit more. Here, because we stay on the brakes, it's a little bit more in terms of stability, it's just a bit more easier. Now your goal will be to have the car as close as you can to the white line on the left side. So when we land, we should be here ideally. And in terms of the braking shape itself, the braking shape will be like one high brake pressure, then drop it down, maintain it, and then once again another spike. Because for the next corner of the chicane, now because we have the car settled, we can brake a tiny bit more because we're not steering as much. So the reason why we dropped the brake pressure around here was because we had some steering wheel angle applied. Look, you're using the steering wheel, but now because you're almost braking in a straight line, you can reapply it, and once you turn in, drop the brakes again, get close to this curb, but don't go completely over it, because now you're using the throttle and you can use this space. So look at the brake trace and the throttle trace. This is something that you should be thinking ahead of going into the chicane. You need to push the brakes a bit harder, then drop it as you steer more, then brake a bit harder once again before the second corner of the chicane, and then just smash the throttle basically. Now for the next corner, you'll be looking here on the right side. You have the 50-meter board, you have this space on the right side. At the 50, you'll be applying the brakes, and make sure you take a late apex, so don't turn very early in second gear. Get this white line nice and late like that, and make sure you're not pushing all the way to the grass on this curve. You're apexing around the white line, that's it. Ideally, you don't even want to touch the red and white curve, then pushing the throttle, pushing the car all the way to the right side. And now we're heading towards the fast left-hander. In terms of positioning, you need to use this little space to the right side of the white line, so make sure you're aligning yourself not with the white line but with the grass. In terms of the braking, the 50-meter board is gonna be your reference. You're gonna stay in fourth gear initially up until you hit the peak, then you're gonna downshift to third gear, and super important to cut this curb like this. This curb will almost hook the car up nicely for you, so make sure you're using it, because then the car will just rotate a tiny bit more. You can use this space as well, so make sure you're just exploiting the track limits in that corner. Now for this one, once again, you can exploit the track limits on entry by putting your left tires to the left side of the white line. On this grayish part, the traction will still be okay. Around the 50-meter board, you're gonna brake, not gonna brake very aggressively, but do the downshift to get the rotation. So notice that we're staying around 80% brake pressure. We're going on this green curb like this, and then when the car lands, we're gonna brake a bit more aggressively. Make sure you're using all the track on the left side. That's super important to open up. And once you have this window of the car almost being straight and you position it almost for straight line braking, then you can brake more. So initially, because you turn, once again, you have less grip, you have to brake softer, but then once you land here, you can brake more aggressively. You'll go to second gear to get the rotation that you need, and even before passing this curb, you should be back on the gas, because you can exploit all this part right here on the curb, and that's gonna be a couple of tenths just by being a tiny bit earlier on the gas. Now for the next chicane, this is tricky. The braking point here should be early. Super important to brake earlier than you think around here. So you look at the 50 and you'll brake in the middle of 150 almost. And you need to cut a lot here in both chicanes. So notice that here in second gear, we go almost completely over the first curve, and then quickly afterwards, we go completely after the second one and push the throttle. So one big tip that I can give you in this chicane, think about quick hands. Because you have to do right, left very quickly around here, very quickly. And the moment that you hit the second curb, you should be smashing the throttle, because you need the earlier you are on throttle here, even though you're gonna modulate, the more time you will gain, because this is quite a decent straight up until the last corners of the track. So make sure you're pushing the throttle while you're still on the curb. That's gonna be super important. Now for this one simple tip, just apex very late. Look, you want on the exit of this corner to be parallel with the white line, like this. If you're gonna take an early apex, that's not gonna happen. You will be more in the center of the track. So when you're braking, you should be all the way parallel with the white line, even brake on this red and white curb. So the reference for braking here is the moment that you take the corner and the car is just straight lined. Then you're gonna go to fourth, third, second, and cut this curb a lot, look, while still holding the brakes. Immediately push the throttle, make sure the car arrives all the way to the grass on the right side. It's quite easy to take the off track, so the best way to say it is have your left tires on the white line. That's gonna be the safest way, but at the same time the car should push towards the grass. Now for the last corner, it's really critical to have a good exit. This leads to the biggest straight of the track. So in second gear, just barely brushing the brakes, because we want to get the rotation done in such a way that we should be early on the gas. Look here, before hitting the curb, we're pushing the throttle. And every millisecond that we're earlier pushing the throttle is gonna be more time on the straight. So we're cutting the green, we go almost completely over it, modulating the throttle so we stay on the track limits with the left tires on the white line, using all the curb, and in short, that's a lap around here. Quite technical track. Make sure you're doing a bit of practice before joining the race sessions. And all in all, I hope you have a great week ahead. Once again, if you want to improve at a quicker pace, check out my website, and looking forward to see you in the next one. Bye bye.